Welcome back to another SCBWI Featured Illustrator interview. My name is Tamika Grooms, and I'm the Design and Illustration Manager for SCBWI. Every month, we select an Illustrator member to spotlight on the SCBWI website and social media pages to highlight the work that they're doing in the children's illustration market. This month's featured illustrator is Shannon Henley. Shannon, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. Well, thank you for taking this interview with me today. I'm so excited to finally talk to you about your work because we saw your work I believe it was last summer in the portfolio showcase. And a lot of people enter the portfolio showcase and they don't know if they're gonna win because you're just putting out your best work that you have at the time. And it's a competitive thing to have your work reviewed by the judges and get an award. And everybody doesn't win an award. However, there are other opportunities within SCBWI, and once you start to submit your work, we start to pay attention and we see what you're doing, and we kind of just make sure we follow you along as you develop. And so, Shannon, your work really stood out to the judges last year, and I saved it in my Illustrator gallery so that I could come back to you at a later time. So I'm really happy to be able to do this interview with you today. So thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and get right into these questions because I have a lot of questions. First of all, I can see a lot of whimsy in your work, and I love the topics that you say you're interested in creating. And I also have a black cat at home, so I'm kind of partial to the black cat energy. But I really want to say, like, your color palette is absolutely amazing. Um, what you have a couple color palettes that you're working with, but the autumn one that you have, what kind of drew you towards that? Because I feel like it's very unique in your approach.
I've always been a fall person. Halloween is my favorite holiday.
Same.
I love all of the smells, pumpkin pie, the leaves changing colors, finally being able to put on sweaters. Fall is absolutely my favorite season, and I always reflect, my favorite things in my work. So the autumnal palette is a huge thing for me. I love bringing in oranges and reds and yellows and pinks. I live in Ohio and we have beautiful metro parks here. And I was always surrounded by, the fall colors growing up. So that was a huge inspiration for me.
Nice, nice. So, can you tell us about some of the things that inspire you the most about your creative work?
Yeah, so some of the things that inspire me the most are things that I loved in my childhood and finding a new love for all of the things that I wanted to explore as a kid. Everything that I aspired to be. I had 100 different careers that I wanted to be as a kid, but throughout all of it, I was drawing. In kindergarten, I would always be over at the drawing table, even if no one else was there, drawing pictures. My first book that I ever illustrated that is not published yet is Deep, and that's one of the pictures that you're spotlighting. And it is about a girl who explores the oceans. And she starts in the coral reef and ends in the abyssal zone. And I, as a child, would check out one book from our school's library so much that they told me that I have to let other kids have a chance with it. And that was a book about deep sea marine creatures. And for a while, even wanted to be a marine biologist, but I ended up being an artist because it's, my favorite thing to do. So everything that I loved as a child, animals, fall, the oceans, shows up in my work today.
Wonderful. We really like that series. And I'm speaking of we as in Sarah and I are the people who typically review the work. But we really liked that whole series. And I want to show that on the screen as well, because I have some questions about that one in particular.
Absolutely.
So I was reading your bio and I noticed that you seem to be you gravitate towards crayons and things that are scratchy and make marks.
Mm-hmm.
How do you use that in your practice now?
So I like to take traditional textures, scan them in, and then overlay them with my digital art. I also have made brushes out of things. And there is a specific watercolor pack that is made by another artist, the Watercolor Max Pack for Procreate. And it is my absolute favorite brush set of all time. I use it constantly. So I use a combination of digital brushes, brushes that I made, and traditional textures that I scan in.
Interesting. Okay, okay. And do you have any other special processes that that kind of find their way into your work?
Well, one thing that I do is I always start at the library.
Ah,
My grandmother and my mother were librarians. And so I have a collection of books of my own. And also, I'm always spending time at the library to inspire my pieces. They see me too much around the children's book section just by myself, picking out all these books.
yeah, yeah, and I'm the same way. I was just there this week, and you become kind of like a one-on-one. You have a relationship with that children's illustrator. I'm sorry, the children's librarian. If you're an
Mm-hmm.
illustrator, you know, because we're always studying what's currently on the market, what's already been done. So that's really cool. That's really cool. All right, so I want to get into your website here. So let me just switch on over to your website. Alrighty, so we have your artwork here on your homepage, and again, your color palette is absolutely stunning. I love that you have all of these different textures. I'm getting in close, leaning in, but you have all of these textures. You have little things that are hidden, like in this one. I just noticed these little eyes. Every time I look at your work, I see that there's something that I missed before. Um, so, and I love this cat. And I think that's what the judges responded to, is that they love the cat character, because you've approached it in a unique way.
Yeah, so the cat character is inspired by two real cats in my neighborhood, my childhood home. Max and Moritz are my neighbor Mrs. Bolta's cats. They cause real trouble around my neighborhood. They have gotten into people's cars. They
Oh,
will go into your house if you let them. They're two persnickety little cats, and I absolutely fell in love with them. And so I started drawing them just in my free time, and I took a children's book class in
uh-huh.
in college, and so I decided to make them the subject of the book that I illustrated for that class, and I just kept going with it because I love these cats. So I love magic and whimsy and anything that um, can inspire children and adults to reimagine their love for retro things. So this specific illustration is inspired by my great aunt's kitchen. A lot of the things that you see in this kitchen are real things that she has in her house.
Mm.
Um, so a lot of even my magical stuff takes inspiration from real life. These noodle cats. So I have a cat, black cat named Esme, and she is my muse. She's my model, and a lot of times she just looks like a shape. You can't even determine what's a paw, what's her tail. She just looks like a shape, and that's what inspired the creation of these noodle cats. Um, because if you look at a black cat, a lot of times they're just like a shape.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I was in a session with James Ransom, and one of the things that he told us to focus on first is shape, and let that define the area or the group of characters that you're working with. Um, and I love the shape that you've created. It's very distinctive. When I see that cat specifically, I definitely think of you. So um, and it's because of how you've approached the shape and the way you designed the character. Um, did you write anything for this?
Yeah, so this is actually a fully illustrated book.
Okay.
Um, it is in dummy form right now, so I have the pages illustrated here, and the rest is in pencil.
Mhm.
But this is a book that I'm working on getting published with my agent right now.
Very good. I think Max and Moritz needs a series.
I would love to. I actually have the second book in mind already, but I'll
Yeah.
start with the first one.
I love the way you've explained it to me, and I feel like they have lots to share with young readers across the world. So I'm gonna scroll on down, and I love these as well. You have some natural items in here with the bugs, children, environments. I also looked at these. This was a beautiful color palette as well. Um, a lot lighter, lots more spring light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then these, like I remember from last year, I remember the first two at the top. And I'm sure that I remember this well, but this was stunning. And I thought the whale, the zoomed in version of it too. Let me come down. Um, I thought that this was a really interesting approach to her, exploring this whale's eye. But then when it becomes massive, you see how small she is compared to this big whale in the ocean. But and you said that she has a story as well too.
Yeah, so this was my bachelor's thesis.
Yeah.
It's called Deep, and it's a wordless picture book because we were exploring wordless picture books in my picture book class, and I just loved the way that a lot of different illustrators told a story without words. So I
Mm.
created this wordless picture book about how she explores the ocean. This is also in dummy form, but I illustrated a lot more pieces than a typical dummy because it was my bachelor's.
Yeah. One of the things I was telling Sarah when I looked at your work, if I know you're doing like natural environments and you have this character, but it also feels like you're bringing in pattern making
Mm-hmm.
in the art, like with this one specifically. It feels like a pattern, like you see the repetition, even though it's not obvious repetition, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I studied a lot of natural forms. Every single piece of coral to every little piece of seaweed, everything in this book is a real animal.
Mm.
And at the end of the book, I have everything laid out in an illustrated index because I wanted, although this book is magical, this little girl could not breathe underwater this long, and no one can swim to the abyssal zone. I wanted it to be rooted in reality. So
Yeah.
every single creature in here is real, and they also belong in the environments that I put them in. So, the coral reef, you won't find something from the Atlantic Ocean that should be in the Pacific there that's in the Pacific. Everything is rooted in reality.
Hmm. But also the way that you've approached the composition too. Even though you're dealing with real things in real environments, your design of the space is very, eye-catching. So I love this piece too. Actually, there was a lot of pieces that I was like, which one, which one? And then this one as well was one that caught the judge's attention. So very beautiful portfolio, wonderful work in here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And so you haven't published any books yet?
No, I'm actually working on my very first um, illustrated book that I'm illustrating that someone else wrote right now.
Oh,
It should be published by the end of this year, so I'm looking forward to that.
okay. Perfect. Well, I want to invite everybody to come and read your bio, learn more about your work. You have more on here that I didn't show. So I'm going to stop sharing. I have a couple more questions for you.
Absolutely.
Yep. So tell me, do you have any favorite books that you maybe have from your past, or maybe that you're currently reading?
Yeah, so my favorite illustrator authors that I take inspiration from are Zach Menbeck and Matthew Forsyth are two of the biggest illustrators that I'm inspired by. Also Annette Marnat. But as you can see back here, I have some of my favorite books on display. Um, so I have Paco and the Drum, Mina, Mushroom Rain, by Laura K. Zimmerman, illustrated by Jamie Green. Jamie Green is another one of my inspirations. Um, I absolutely love the way that they use texture and shape and lighting everything that they do is it inspires me.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we look forward to the books that you're going to create as well. And thank you for sharing those names. Some of them I've heard of and some of them I haven't. So I'll definitely go do my research. I would like to know what made you join SCBWI?
So the picture book illustrator or picture books illustration teacher that I was speaking of is also a fellow illustrator, and my amazing teacher, Susie McGinnis, recommended that I join SCBWI. I was also looking for an art community after graduation. A lot of people after I graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Art went back home to their respective states, and I kind of lost some of that community that I had built in college. So I was looking for a community of illustrators and authors, and I found it with SCBWI.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're so happy to have you with us. And I'm so grateful that I got a chance to learn more about your work. I'm hoping that we see lots more from you, and I definitely want to see more of those cats as well.
You will.
Yeah. Well, before we get out, could you tell everybody how they can learn or where they can learn more about your work online?
Absolutely. So at my website, shannonhenleyillustrations.com, you can also visit Astound. The Astound is an agency that I'm represented by, and you can visit their website and find me there. You can also follow my Instagram. It's Shannon_Henley_illustrations. And that's about where you can find me.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.